Zach, how do you say your last name, brother?
It's Polish. It's Frankowiak.
Frankowiak.
I was just scrolling through lives and I saw your prompt. I feel like I'm a good person and I'm an unbeliever, so I didn't know if you had like a specific prompt to ask somebody like that. I don't know.
Yeah, man, why don't you believe in Jesus, bro?
I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of good evidence for it.
I typically call bullshit. Even after giving them evidence, just like with Keegan just now, gave him a perfect example of evidence and then cited my sources and said you can confirm on ChatGPT. Even after giving this evidence, people just invalidate the evidence. So I've come to the conclusion that it's not a matter of evidence that people don't believe in Jesus. So I call bullshit. I think there is a deeper reason, Zach. Why don't you believe in Jesus?
Like I said, I just have no evidence.
Beetlejuice.
Well, yesterday, we were having a great conversation with our brother OakDale Curtis.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Brother Curtis, right now. Here we go. Curtis, come up here.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
I'm gonna make you so happy.
Isn't God good?
All you had to do was mention my name.
Many of the actual scientists themselves that have gone over the last 50 years to the Shroud to do the research in their particular fields were agnostic, atheists. The lead scientist was Jewish. I've spoken to him.
What do you know about the Shroud of Turin? This isn't about religion. This is about science and an image on a sheet of cloth. Now, that doesn't mean that other people don't see this from a religious point of view. It took me 17 years after we finished before the scientific evidence finally convinced me this has got to be the real thing. And it's not from a religious or theological point of view, but from a purely scientific point of view. The most plausible explanation is that they have preserved an artifact of the historical Jesus of Nazareth.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if he told us.
I just asked ChatGPT, is there a special kind of genetic diversity of species in the DMZ? Yes, the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, is known for hosting a remarkably high level of biodiversity, including genetic diversity within species due to its unique status as a largely undisturbed area for over 70 years. And when you gaff off ChatGPT as if you're actually smarter than ChatGPT, no, you're not smarter than ChatGPT. And all I said was just freaking Google it, ChatGPT it. And you laugh and you think you're a genuine person? You think you're a good person? No, I'm wanting to talk with genuine human beings that are intellectually honest. Zachary Frankowiak. Frankowiak? Frankowiak. If you could please help us pronounce.
Yo, how's it going?
Zach, how do you say your last name, brother?
It's Polish. It's Frankowiak.
Frankowiak. How you doing, Zach? What brings you in today, man?
I'm good. I was just scrolling through lives and I saw your prompt. And I don't think it's a prompt, but you want to talk to unbelievers that think they're good people. I feel like I'm a good person and I'm an unbeliever, so I didn't know if you had like a specific prompt to ask somebody like that. I don't know.
Yeah, man, why don't you believe in Jesus, bro?
I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of good evidence for it.
I typically call bullshit.
Okay, how so?
There's so much evidence, and based off of my personal conversations with the people that say a lack of evidence, even after giving them evidence, just like with Keegan just now, gave him a perfect example of evidence and then cited my sources and said you can confirm on ChatGPT, which, by the way, I did myself, and confirmed that I was giving him correct information. Even after giving this evidence, people just invalidate the evidence. So I've come to the conclusion that it's not a matter of evidence that people don't believe in Jesus. So I call bullshit. I think there is a deeper reason, Zach. Why don't you believe in Jesus?
Like I said, I just have no evidence. But based on that, I would just love to know what your evidence is. Truly very interested.
Beetlejuice.
Well, yesterday we were having a great conversation with our brother OakDale Curtis.
Beetlejuice.
And he was sharing about the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is great scientific evidence for any critical thinking human that is intellectually honest with themselves to investigate for themselves if they're willing to look at the evidence. Oh, there goes
Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Brother Curtis right now. Here we go. Curtis, come up here.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
I'm gonna make you so happy.
Zach says that he doesn't have enough evidence to believe in Jesus. Isn't God good?
All you had to do was mention my name.
That's how he works. Jesus works like this, man. He's a comedian. If you really want evidence, I believe in specialization, Zach. The Shroud of Turin is the best evidence, but the best person to hear that from on TikTok is my brother Curtis. So, Zach, Curtis, Zach.
Nice to meet you, Curtis.
Now you see why they're calling me Beetlejuice, Daniel.
Well, no, the thing is it's like that with everybody in my life these days. It's just timing is always perfect, and I can only give credit to God because it's not me.
Timing, all about timing.
It's not like I willed you to be here.
I don't know. I was just scrolling and anyway. Hi, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. I don't know if you know anything about me, Zach. That's okay. I don't say that with any ego. I'm pretty well known on TikTok. But I have a really unusual mission. For better or worse, Scripture tells us he gives us all our gifts. And my gift isn't to argue theology. My gift is a scientist. And 15 years ago, Zach, as a scientist, he started, my creator, to bring me papers and evidence. And when I mean papers, I'm talking about peer-reviewed journal, abstract, published documents from some of the finest minds in the world. And many of them are not Christian. Some are atheists, some are agnostic, some are Jewish. But they go to this artifact for the last 50 years and research it. Anything you read on Google, Zach, don't believe it at all. They're not scientific. They're just stupid opinions from people that have tremendous bias and don't know anything about the data and science. That's the world I live in, science and data. So for 15 years, he started leading me down this path, and the amount of data and science I've accumulated on this is just unimaginable. Files and files and files across many lines of science and the studies being done. And personally, I look at it, I'm a Christian, but I don't really care if it's real or not, Zach. I don't come to this with, oh, it's got to be real because I believe in the Bible. All I care about is what is the science telling me. If the science ever showed this wasn't real, I'd be surprised because the science is actually going the other way and closing the window that it's a forgery. But I'd stop talking about it, but it had no effect on my faith or my worldview. The problem that atheists, and I'm not speaking about you directly here, Zach, I don't know you, but the problem that atheists have when they come to this is in an atheist worldview, this cannot be real. It isn't possible because they believe that Christ didn't exist, Sky Daddy, and again, I don't know you, Zach, so I'm not aiming at you, but for an atheist, when they come to this, their bias is off the charts. They cannot even think about the evidence here objectively. Let's look at the science. What is it telling us? Because their bias tells them this cannot be real. So I just want you to understand right on the surface, Zach, how I've done this a long time. I've dealt with a lot of atheists, and they're just, nah, doesn't matter what the science says. They'll go Google one thing and think they've got a handle on it, and they're just so far mistaken. But what I really search for, Zach, when I do my talks on this, are people that they can be agnostic. Actually, I'm looking for the agnostics, and there's a difference. An agnostic says, I don't think there's a God. I don't have enough evidence, but I'm smart enough to know that it is possible there is a God. I just haven't been led to enough evidence to persuade me of that. And that's where I come in, and that's the mission he sends me on, is to say, okay, if you want evidence, I present 2 hours of hard science, data, evidence, and then I let the listener decide, Zach. I don't beat you on the head. You got to believe this. And I'll wrap this monologue up in a second. I know I'm on a rant, Zach. Many of the actual scientists, Zach, I don't do the research. I collect it. I'm a scientist. I sit in the comfort of my home, get all these studies, read them, digest them, bring them to my audience. Many of the actual scientists themselves that have gone over the last 50 years to the Shroud to do the research in their particular fields were agnostic, atheists. The lead scientist was Jewish. I've spoken to him.
What do you know about the Shroud of Turin? This isn't about religion. This is about science and an image on a sheet of cloth. Now, that doesn't mean that other people don't see this from a religious point of view. It took me 17 years after we finished before the scientific evidence finally convinced me this has got to be the real thing. And it's not from a religious or theological point of view, but from a purely scientific point of view. The most plausible explanation is that they have preserved an artifact of the historical Jesus of Nazareth. Why would somebody preserve something like that in the first place? Unless it belonged to someone of such great importance that it was worth the risk. They wouldn't have kept it for 2,000 years. If it had belonged to anyone else, it wouldn't have mattered. You don't need to be a Christian to accept the peer-reviewed science based on direct physical examination of the cloth, and to accept the historicity of Jesus of Nazareth, to accept that we have an artifact of that man whose influence is still being felt on this planet more so than when he was alive.
And after doing their research, these aren't stupid people, Zach. These are brilliant scientists, and it's not easy to get them to change their mind on something this powerful and fundamental. And yet, Zach, many of them moved from atheism and agnosticism and even Judaism to Christianity because they realized the data and science is telling them that this is the image of Jesus Christ in the scripture that was crucified, and when he blasted out of that cloth in an amount of physics and light and energy that the science tells us, they can't get past the data. They realize this is not a forgery. This is not a fake. This is the actual cloth, and that is his actual image. So let me land there for a minute, Zach, and give you a chance to put your 2 cents in. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I thought it was kind of crazy that you guys brought up the Shroud of Turin, because a few weeks ago, I had seen some video on YouTube about this, and I don't remember the creator's name, but he was very unbiased about presenting just all the information that he had learned about it. And this is the one thing that I had said, okay, I'm gonna look a little bit into this. And I like to look at things through a very analytical and fact-based way.
That's
so
fine,
I have access to scientific journals through my university, and so I looked up
academia.edu, for example.
Like that.
That's the sources I use.
So I looked up, I just did a base search on this, and the one name that came up a lot was Christian Casabianca. Are you familiar with that name?
It doesn't ring a bell, but I know all the science. So if I have a little piece of lead on what he's doing, I can tell you if I do then.
Well, funnily enough, he's actually somebody that, if I remember correctly, he was a French scientist, and he studied the Shroud of Turin. He said that was the artifact that made him believe in God. And I thought that was very interesting. And he's got a couple different scientific papers published in some journals, and I was reading through them. And interestingly enough, I don't remember him making a conclusion about whether it was distinctly proven true or not. He just kind of presented the facts. And
we don't use the word proof in science, Zach. We use the word evidence. But that's okay. I'm not being picky.
Yeah, sure. I'm just colloquially using it as an interchangeable piece.
I always correct that, though. As a scientist, we just don't know what we do. We say, here's the evidence. You decide.
Yeah, so
Sorry, I'm not trying to be picky, Zach.
The things that I've seen about it, were the carbon dating thing, and how they carbon dated it, but it was used from a piece that was patched up during whatever fire. But just from what I was reading, I don't remember seeing anything that was I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely real because of all this.
Right.
So I just wanted to know what your scientific evidence you're definitive on that proves its authenticity.
Well, again, I'm not trying. I know you said colloquially, but it's just me, because I have people that follow me and watch, and I really work with my Christian brothers and sisters to get them to speak about evidence, because proof is a standard we don't really meet in our life, other than math. I'm good at math. We can do math proofs. But when you go through an intersection on a green light, Zach, generally we might glance both ways, but for the most part, we drive through on the green light. We have no proof that the other driver isn't going to T-bone us. And yet we do it anyway, because we have enough life's evidence that generally people aren't T-boned. So it just is a standard that when that standard is thrown up, it's not meetable. So we're dead in the water. That's why but I understand colloquially. But so I work on evidence, and I've served on a grand jury for a year. I've served on criminal juries. The prosecutor presents one piece of evidence, something happened. You go, oh, yeah, okay, 2, maybe 3. If you go in a jury room with 10, 12, 15 pieces of evidence, some are stronger than others, some are more controversial than others, but as 12 reasonable people, you look at all the totality of the data and its provenance and how strong it is, and then if they're all pointing to the same story, 12 reasonable people put their head together and say, beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, you notice they didn't say prove. There's always a window that we can be wrong as human beings, and in science, if you don't understand that, you shouldn't be in science. But as time has gone on in the last 50 years, with all the previous theories about how this was made, this, that, and the other, as the science moves forward, that window is closing till you reach a point where you couldn't fit a hair between it, and all the other data is telling you the same thing. But if in your question, if you're asking me what is the evidence, I do a 2-hour talk once a week, Zach, and it takes 2 hours because I go comprehensively: botany, pathology, life science, physics, history, hematology, you name it. There's all these different fields of science that people people are experts in. The blood experts go in and do what they do. The pollen experts go do what they do. It's not one guy in one field of science. The light physicists tell us what kind of energy made this image. By the way, it's off the charts insane. And so you just stack the bricks up, making a case that you get to the point at the top of the pyramid where you say, what's left? I mean, what more would someone need to hear? But I will agree there are parts of that evidence that are controversial. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's no opposing viewpoints in some of these areas, but what I focus on, Jack, is the totality of the evidence across all fields, all sciences. And so you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because one area of the science may have opposing opinions. You don't say, oh, well, then that means it's a fake. Again, you use your reasonable mind and you look at the totality, and it is just, for me, again, you've heard me say I leave it to my listeners, but for me personally, after 15 years of looking at this data, it isn't even close. It is so off the charts compelling that this is, in fact, the image of Christ in the moment that he blasted through that cloth. One final point, and I'll be quiet, Zach, and I apologize for monologuing. My work with this does not extend outside of this. In other words, I don't tell you whether he's God or not. I have an opinion theologically. I don't tell you about Revelations or Genesis or young earth or older. I stay right in this lane, and my hypothesis is this is the image of Christ resurrecting. Now, outside of that, not my specialty.
All right. I mean, I guess my next question would be, so I'm assuming you believe it's not fake, right?
Yes, I believe it is. The evidence is overwhelming. It's not paint. It's not pigment. It's not dyes. We know these things, and we actually have a very good handle now on what made the image. Listen to this, Zach. Physics, scientists, labs, ENA labs, Italy, published paper. The best way they can come close to matching what we have here, and by the way, when I say matching, I don't even mean the whole shroud. I mean matching a pin-sized dot with a laser of the type of image, the scorching. That's what's happened here, by the way, Zach. The cloth. I'll show you a picture. You can believe your own eyes. I love pictures. I include them in because you don't have to believe a guy on TikTok. Can you see these fibers close up, Zach? Okay, this is a close-up. Believe your own eyes. What's happened here is this browning effect is the image. It's just one small part of it, right? If I cut that fiber with scissors and I turn it on end, Zach, this scorching effect is only on the top surface of the fiber to about the thickness of a soap bubble, Zach, which is 0.7 of a micron. Really thin. You follow me? Now, Zach, what happens? You're a smart guy. I'm not patronizing you. What happens if you take any cloth medium and put a liquid or a dye or something on it? What will that do in the cloth?
It's going to go through a lot more light.
You cannot stop it, Zach. It is not possible in physics to stop a liquid, vapor, anything applied to a cloth from soaking in. And yet here it is, paper thin. And what has happened here, Zach, we know this, the science is good, is that the fibers themselves have undergone a chemical reaction called cross-linking, where the carbon molecules absorb energy, radiation, sugar. If you put sugar in a pan, Zach, white table sugar, start adding radiation, heat below the pan. It gets infrared radiation. The way the sugar absorbs that, the carbon absorbs that energy, the carbon molecules start linking with each other. We call that cross-linking. And the sugar slowly changes color from what? White to light yellow, darker yellow, brown. That's what's happened here. This has been hit by radiation. So let me make one statement here and I'll catch my breath. This imaging here, Zach, is nothing put on the cloth. It is the cloth. Do you follow the difference?
Yes.
Okay, so we can rule out somebody took a paintbrush or something to this. That doesn't fit the evidence. So now really smart scientists in Italy spent 2 years. These guys are not theologians. They're PhD chemists, career reward in Italy, Dr. Lazard, all playing with lasers, trying to match on a laser shot on a test linen exactly like the shroud. It's like if I go to a crime scene, Zach, and there's a blood spatter mark up on the wall, and it's very large and dynamic, got movement, blood droplet sizes, arching. We call that dynamic. It's not just one spot. What we do is take pictures at the crime scene of that spot, measure it off the floor. We go back to the lab. Now, we weren't there when that splash was made. But by trying to imitate it at different distances with different instruments, repeated testing, back, forth, closer, faster, at some point, if we're good and we match that pattern very closely, the arc, the movement, the blood spatter, the expansion, then we write a report for the court that says, Your Honor, in our professional criminology opinion, that person was standing 7 feet from the wall, moving an instrument at 6 feet per second, and it was probably a male. What? How do you tell it's a male? Well, because of the height from the floor, our data suggests the person person had to be about 6'4" or taller. Doesn't rule out women, but statistically. But you see my point, Zach? We weren't there, but by trying to imitate the effect, that tells us a lot about what made the effect. You with me?
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if he told us.